Welcome to Unscripted, Believe at Noon, the podcast on Noon Miracle, where we sit down for real conversations that reveal the miracle in all of us. I'm your host, Amy Goldberg, joined by my amazing co-host, Hannah Edelson, who was also a guest on Believe at Noon. And today we're excited to welcome our guest, Kushi Beauchamp. Each episode, we get to know someone new, not just by what they do, but who they are. By simply talking and listening. It's all about connection, curiosity, and discovering the magic that lives in all of us. So let's dive in. This is Believe at Noon. Well, first of all, Kushi, welcome to Believe at Noon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Hannah is my co-host today, which is so wonderful because the two of you, which I want to start off with, know one another. And how does that happen?
That's true. Yeah, we met in college. We lived together. We did a lot of art together in college. Yeah, that's the baseline.
Yeah. What kind of art?
Yeah. Mostly theater art, a lot of theater. And I have a very specific memory of seeing Hannah. We didn't live in the same building. Hannah lived in like the arts building and I didn't get into the arts building. So I remember seeing Hannah from a distance and being like, that's a lady I want to be friends with. But it took me a little while to actually make the connection. I was intimidated.
I was intimidated by you because I remember you were in a show called 448 Psychosis, our second semester freshman year. And that was one of the shows that I didn't audition for because I wanted to work on the crew for credits. It was a whole thing. And I just remember absolutely kicking myself for not auditioning for it because you played the lead in that and you were so brilliant. I had never seen anything like it. You were like vulnerable and brave and strange and everything that I have ever aspired to be. And your performance caliber has inexplicably only gone up from there.
And where does that magic come from, Kushi? Where is this spark? Take us back to when you were born.
Sure. So I was born and I got struck by theater lightning. No, I was very fortunate. I grew up here in the Bay Area. I was fortunate to go to public schools that had really excellent after school theater opportunities. And so I started theater when I was I did my first play when I was in kindergarten. I was in a kindergarten production of The Lion King. And I've told this story a few times, weirdly. It's becoming part of my lore. I played Simba's mom. I got to faint and I had 2 lines. And when I fainted, my hat fell off on stage and it was fine. And so I think I gained a lot of confidence from that little flub. And but yeah, I just did like after school theater my whole childhood, and it started, as a thing where I just was excited to play. I mean, right? Like that's where art sort of, you hope, sort of springs from initially, is a sense of play and a sense of curiosity. And I loved getting to spend time playing make-believe with my friends. And then as I sort of stuck with that, I found deeper and deeper layers of why I love doing theater and why it's become my career now.
And what is that? What is it about that, Kushi? Like did you come from a creative family? I mean, what was the impetus to this? Because people like sort of pick up, I completely get where Hannah gets her, expression of talent and she's been just kind of like, before she was born, this was her life. And so, but for you, I'm just really curious as to, your family dynamic.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think I have a similar situation to Hannah. My parents met in art school in San Francisco. They're both visual artists. And so, my dad is a painter and my mom teaches middle school art now. And so it was always just a highly valued thing in our household, was being creative. And, I luckily was born before the time of internet and cell phones, like just barely sort of squeaked through there. So my whole childhood was reading books out loud. My mom would read chapter books out loud and we would all sit and listen and doing craft projects. And, I'm remembering at one point, my mom submitted me to the Rosie O'Donnell show, which was on the air at the time, because I had become obsessed with making little sculptures of snowmen out of Scotch tape balls. And she was like, the world's got to see this one. So that was the vibe.
Oh my God. So what happened? Did you go?
I did not go. No, Rosie O'Donnell was not interested in my snowman. Which maybe now she'll see this and be like, oh, I really missed out on this, 6-year-old's brilliance, but it's okay. I survived. I thrived anyway without Rosie.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever heard the snowman story before. So that's a new piece of lore that I'm very pleased to have learned today.
I know it's kind of amazing how you can know somebody for years and years and years of your life, and there's just like there's still things about
so
your
much
past that you just, if you've randomly never touched on it, why would it have come up? Yeah.
Snowman. The thing that I wanted to ask is because I know that you began as an actor primarily, first and foremost, and recently in the past few years, you've been moving to writing your own material and being inspired to write more. And I have also followed that similar trajectory, but you've been working on a few pieces. What are you working on right now, and what drove you there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that well, right now I've been slowly massaging a piece that I started when I was in grad school, which is about Circe, who's the witch in the Odyssey that turns all of Odysseus's men to pigs. So we can get more into that later. But to answer the other part of your question, I think that it's super important to be able to create your own work as an actor, and I think that that was instilled in us a little bit from one of our professors in undergrad, Rebecca Lingefelter, who I just will shout out and praise till my dying days. She really got into my life at the perfect moment and helped me set a course that has been really life-changing. And one of the things is that she introduced us to the concept of devised work, which really can break down the hierarchy of the sort of contemporary theater structure, or the traditional theater structure, really, where you've got a director, a playwright, actors, and the actors don't really have access to the art unless a director lets them in the door and the playwright writes a role for them. So the idea of devising, right, is essentially like group creation, group writing, and it's come to through exercises and all sorts of ensemble magic. But that was really impactful for me because it started to mean there were moments of performance that I could be part of that weren't written already, that weren't in the theatrical canon, that resonated specifically with me. So it was deeply empowering and made me be like, oh, well, maybe I could just also write. Like that is not so far removed from devising in an ensemble. It's just sort of devising in my own brain. So I sort of came to writing in a roundabout way, but yeah.
Does it feel right for you? Does it feel right for you, Kushi, to write?
To be a writer?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I look back at my childhood, I was always like, that was part of what I was doing. I was always writing little poems and things. And I think that the way that I write is often very poetic. And so it's sort of taking that that style and trying to look at like, okay, well, what is a theater looking for when they're building their season? And, a little bit trying to be like, okay, how can I take what I know I'm really good at and then craft it so that it's a thing that could be shared with a wider audience?
Yeah, exactly. And just second part of this question, if you could write a character just for yourself, what would her journey reveal about you? Like, what does she, what she feels or overcomes or discovers? What would that be for you?
Whoa, that's a really good question. That's a great question. And I think honestly, it relates to what I've been exploring in Circe, because of course, right, whatever you're working on is sort of, I'm just going to interrupt myself here. I got to meet the legendary Stephen Adly Guirgis while I was in grad school and do a sort of workshop with him. And one of the things that he one of the little nuggets that I wrote down was like, you have to write what keeps you up at night. And so whatever it is that's spinning is the thing that you need to put on paper and work
That's
out.
right.
And so the thing that's been spinning for me, I think in the last couple of years, is this kind of push and pull between being a woman that is fiercely independent and then also wanting to be part of community. And I think that I've been able to explore that through Cersei a little bit because she's, I mean, quite literally isolated on an island. And so she's had to, I don't know how much you know the story of Cersei, but she's sort of banished there by her family. And so she's banished. She has to stay on that island and she has to create a life for herself there that is fulfilling on her own. And I relate to that very deeply. I was a person who was in chronic, chronic makes it seem like it's an illness, but I was a chronically monogamous person my whole life. I was in back to back, just long-term relationships, which was beautiful. And I got to, God, how old was I, Hannah? Like 24.
24, I think. 24,
And
25.
I went through a really intense breakup. And then I was single for 4 years. And it was the first time in my life that I was single. And I was like, oh my God, I have not been doing any of this growing in the meantime because I've been in these partnerships. And so it was really this moment where I was like, oh, I have to be happy on my own. I have to figure out how to be happy on my own and how to stand on my own 2 feet. And so then when a person comes along that I want to add to my life, it's just an addition and it's not, I'm going to lean on this person for everything and not be able to stand on my own 2 feet. Um, so I think that's where I'm at now is now I've maybe swung a little bit far to the other side where I'm really protective of my independence. And then what is the process like of allowing somebody to come into your life and to take care of you and to have that interdependence that's not codependence. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's sort of what I'm tickling with this play I'm working on right now.
I'm so excited for it.
Where
I've
is it
gotten
going to be
to,
played? Where are
I've
you going
got,
to, where is it going to be?
It's
Sorry, Hannah.
not it's not anywhere right now. I did an initial like workshop production of it at UMKC where I got my MFA last year. And then I just moved to San Francisco, the San Francisco Bay Area a few months ago and I've had time to sort of start working on it again. And so I've been going to the writer's room at Z Space in San Francisco, which has been a beautiful little playwright community, and just started to pick it back up again. So I don't know. Right now, I'm just sort of making it for me, and I think like it'll find its right home when it's ready to.
I'm so glad that you brought up devised earlier because I was gonna ask about that because that's really how that's one of the parts of our arts education that I think a lot of people don't get is that kind of spontaneous generation of ideas in a group. And it's so hard to and it has helped so much with I'd say like interpersonal skills, you know?
Totally,
Like being able
totally.
to take in someone else's idea and hear it for what it is and not place judgment on it and then say, okay, I think this is how we can work and move forward with this. And that communal, do you feel like building community has been made easier by that kind of communal contract to hear everybody out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's so many things like that in devising culture that sort of, spread out to everything. There, like another thing I'm thinking of immediately is the phrase, hold on tightly, let go lightly, right? Which is a thing that we just say when we're making work because it's helpful in that, but it so applies to everything in my life, I find, where
Yep.
you want to be fully committed to the idea. Like if something is in front of you, hold on tightly to it. Like let's commit to it. Let's really dive in and see what it is. And then as soon as you realize it's not right, you can just be like, okay, it's fine. I wasn't married to it, right? Like I don't need to dig my claws in and be like, no, I want to figure out how we make the alien talk to the fish. I really want to, and it's like, okay, it's great that you were fully committed to it when that was in the room, and now it's okay to fully let it go. Um, and I think it's helped me be more like, yeah, I can be fully invested in things even when I know they're going to be temporary or not for me long term. I can still be all the way in which I think is just, a better way to live your life. And yeah, there was one other thing that you said, Hannah, about the devising. Oh, the the idea of like, let's just try it. Let's just get up on our feet and try it, right? Like, I think that that's one of the first kind of rules that you establish as a group is like,
Don't talk
instead of
too much.
sitting on our butts and
Hmm.
talking it through a million ways and being like, well, I don't think it's going to work because of this, this, and this, like, talk about it for maybe 30 seconds and then get on your feet and try it and see if it works. And I think like that has definitely contributed to me being a better collaborator and community member just in my life as well, is like instead of me sitting there and thinking it through and which of course thinking is important, but
Sure.
like I'm a chronic overthinker, and so it's been a really refreshing change of pace to just be like, cool, let's try it, and if we don't like it, we can change it.
That's great advice, Kushi. That's great advice, and I mean, it really helps, I think, for our creative listeners. And I just want to ask you too: how do you balance emotional authenticity with the kind of the technical aspects of acting? Like, are you more instinctive or structured? Like, what does that look like for you?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, they're both really important. It's both really important. I think that my answer now is probably different than it was a few years ago
Yeah.
because in the last few years, I've been fortunate enough to do shows that have long runs. And so, you're doing a show, almost 100 times over the course of a few months. And like, if you're doing a show where you have to hit a really low emotional bottom, you've got to find a way to sustain that, not only so that you're, showing a consistent product to every audience that you have, but also so that you aren't going home at the end of the day and wanting to die.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think for me, that balance that I'm working on right now is being really brave in rehearsals, is trying to just come in from day one. For anybody that's listening that might be an actor, being off book as soon as possible because you really can't plumb those depths if you're in your head looking for the words. Get the words in your bones so that then you're there and you can be present in the room and be working with a director, working with your scene partner, um, and being deeply brave and tapped into your own emotional world and present with what's happening. And then finding a way to set that so that then technically you can go in and recreate that night after night, the sort of shape of it, but you're not necessarily having to fill it each time because you've sort of filled it. I'm trying to come up with a metaphor here. It's almost like you I'm imagining like a balloon or like a paper mache or something where you fill something up and so you see what the shape of it is when it's full, and then you can pop the balloon and then be like, okay, this is the shape of it, and at night after night I can fill it however much I have to give, but I know the shape of it's there, and so then I can work with my own boundaries of like how much do I really need to cry tonight and how much am I going to, you're not generating it night after night. It's, the sound of what that cry is. And so you can reproduce technically the sound that you made the first few times when you were filling it from a generative perspective.
Right. And actually, I want to ask you, and I know we're coming to toward the end, but I want to ask both you, Hannah and Kushi, you're both actors, you're both writers, directors, will be. And I want to ask you, what sustains you? Like how there are so many creative people out in Noon Miracle, and we're part of that. And I know people want to know that I want to hone my craft. I want to do what I love. I'm so inspired, but I also have to sustain my life. How do you do, both of you do that? Kushi first, then Hannah.
Okay. The first thing that came to mind is my female friendships. I think that, I mean, truly, truly, my female friendships have saved my life all the time, and they are one of the things that fill me up. I think also going to see work. I think that like when you're in a mode of generating, you have to, who said this to us first? I think it was Amber Whitehall and Rebecca Lingenfelter said to us early in our college career, you've got to stock the compost pile. So if creativity is like taking in the things around you and what is the word I'm looking for? Like digesting them and making them into something else, you got to have input. And so, not just scroll. TikTok's fine for little bite-sized desserts, right? But like go out to a concert, go see the local theater where you are, go see movies in the movie theater, go to art shows and bathe in other people's creativity because it's like so nourishing. And do that with a female friend. That's my advice.
I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think community, I think that I am never more inspired than when I have just seen a really good show. Because I think to myself, I want to do that. And even honestly, even when I go see a really bad show, because if I go see a really bad show and I walk out of it, I'm like, there were things about that I liked. There were also a lot of things that I think I could have done better.
Totally. Well, and if that jerk is taking up time and resources with his dumb idea, like I got some dumb ideas.
Listen, somebody's gotta get the role. So why not me? Right. And just being able to, yeah, like you said, consuming art and also not there. We have this interesting thing with plagiarizing. I don't think that's good, by the way, very publicly. Don't think plagiarizing is good, but
that's the only clip I'm going to pull from this.
I know, right? I think that it can be over policed sometimes because sometimes you draw inspiration from a thing and that's what inspires you. And I've caught myself a few times thinking, oh, well, I can't write that story because it's too similar to the thing that I just read.
Right.
And it's like, well, but no, actually, that's a building block. Like,
good point.
You learn by learning. So if you see something that you want to integrate into your own practice and your own art, as long as it's like you're not profiting off of someone else's art, I think that it's important to grow using the artistic community so you surround yourself with and use the food that you intake to create new art. Like you said, compost that, So yeah, female friendships also, that rules. You said that and I'm like, yeah, that rules.
That's great. Well, that's good because then, I mean, certainly our listeners and viewers will sort of take that and sort of digest it in a way that's going to be meaningful to them. Like, because you're interpreting however you want to interpret anyway. So I think that's amazing. And I knew, okay, Kushi, last question for today. And I know that we could be speaking all day long. You're an unbelievably fascinating person. What does believe mean to you in your life right now, and beyond hope or positivity, something that's more embodied?
Whoa. Yeah. I mean, it's a really good question, especially now. I've just moved to a new city as an actor. And
was that a good move, by the way? Was that good for you?
Yeah, definitely. I was in Kansas City, which I loved. I have a great community of theater people out in Kansas City. They're making incredible art out there. But my family's out here. And so I was just sort of in a long-term move, wanting to be closer to them and establish my career closer to my family. But it's really hard to be in a new place. It's so humbling to be moving through this much change again as an adult. I think like I haven't moved through such a total overhaul of like losing all of my structure, my apartment, my friends, my jobs, all that stuff to start afresh. And it's been super humbling just to see how much it feels like the bottom has sort of fallen out and I've got to start from scratch. And so I've been really up against that lately. I've been really up against how do you have faith that things are going to change, that things are going to not feel like this forever, and that familiarity will come again, community will come again. And so I don't know that I have the answer to that question, but I've been driving all over the Bay Area going to auditions. I'm actually going to get in the car in about an hour and drive to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival for an audition. And as I've been driving, I've been listening to podcasts from other artists that are talking about the ups and downs of being a creative person and how like the difference between people that get to be successful in this business and those that don't is not really about talent. It's about how do you persevere through these moments where you're like, I might never work again.
Yeah.
And you just have to have that faith in yourself. And for me, I think that faith comes more from the fact that I believe in the transformative power of storytelling. And I really do believe that sharing stories is medicine for what is going on right now all around the world, and that it's the thing that makes us feel connected and human. And so I believe in the power of that, and I think that that's what keeps me sitting in traffic and going to another audition, because I believe in the work.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Really appreciate it. And will you two get to work together in the future?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
Of course we will, because we're going to grow
Yeah.
old together. So it's inevitable.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's inevitable.
Good.
Thank you so much for
That's
having
happy.
me, all.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you for co-hosting. Really appreciate it. Kushi,
So happy.
fabulous.
So nice to meet you guys. Well, I know you, Hannah, but you know.
Every day I meet you and it's like another blessing.
I
It's
meet you
great.
fresh.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.